Many are upset over the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight, with some people claiming that it was rigged because many people bet a lot of money and they lost a lot of money. Allegedly, there's this script that got leaked showing how the fight was supposed to go down between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul.
Netflix just sued Mike Tyson and Jake Paul for the scripted circus show, I Mean the Fight. Really, guys? 6 months of hype, millions of fans on the edge of their seats, and what do we get? A fight faker than a reality TV finale. Did you honestly think no one would catch on? I mean, come on, it wasn't that obvious.
Tyson versus Jake Paul just got Netflix sued. People got big problem.
So what's the grand plan to fix this? Because let's be real, the damage is done. You didn't just mess up your own reputations, you managed to take the entire sport of boxing down with you. Impressive. Honestly, at this point, even an apology would feel scripted. Bravo, guys. Really, top-tier work.
Jake didn't deserve it, but he got there through business. And I get that. For people like me who value what boxing is supposed to be about, right? The reason I had a whinge about Tyson Fury not fighting the best that time, I care about...
Fans had been salivating for months, waiting for the ultimate showdown between the legendary Mike Tyson and YouTuber-turned-boxer Jake Paul. The anticipation was palpable. The moment when we'd see Paul get knocked out so hard he'd be back in the YouTube comment section wondering how to make a comeback video.
It is two athletes getting a payday and nothing else. And from the highlights, using that word real loosey-goosey, that I watched of it, there wasn't even really much of a fight there.
Instead, what did we get? A circus. A scripted, glitchy disaster of a performance that left us all wondering if Netflix thought we were born yesterday. I mean, we all knew something was off when the most anticipated punches of the decade barely seemed to land.
It's just, from the very beginning, I said there would be no knockouts in this fight. I was very, very firm in that prediction. And there was no knockouts in this fight. Not only was there no knockouts, there was no anything worthwhile. As I said from the beginning, this is just a cash grab.
And let's not forget the payouts. Jake Paul walked away with a cool $40 million for this epic showdown, while Mike Tyson, the guy who once made legends out of his fists, got a humble $20 million. It's almost like Tyson threw away his legacy as if it was last season's sweater. A quick cash grab, a few punches here and there, and boom, instant payday. It's the kind of deal that makes you question everything you know about sports, money, and dignity. And what does Netflix get in return? Eyeballs, pay-per-view cash, and the kind of viral attention that makes you wonder if they really care about sports at all. Forget The Witcher or Stranger Things. Their new hit show is How to Get People to Pay for Fake Fights 101.
Is this fight real?
It's as real as all the money that's being bet. Yes, that's a qualified yes. There were certain differences from conventional fights or conventional male fights. There are 2-minute rounds.
The whole thing felt like one of those terrible reality shows where you would know it's scripted, but you watch anyway because you're hooked. Netflix doesn't care, they've got us hooked, glued to our screens, wondering what circus act they'll roll out next. Because who needs real sports when you can just fake a fight and rake in the views? Nice one, Netflix. You really know how to cash in on a disaster. And now Netflix is acting like they had nothing to do with it. Really? You didn't know Tyson and Jake Paul might have just played a little let's pretend to fight for a paycheck?
Citing over 100,000 people complaining online, the lawsuit claimed that the boxing fans along with go to my Instagram.
Because the fans sure knew something was off. The glitches, the lackluster punches, the strange energy in the air. It wasn't just bad streaming. It was like watching a badly written soap opera. Except instead of crying, the fans were the outraged.
People keep emailing me and asking me, what did I think about the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight? The reason I didn't want to talk about the fight and the reason I was so adamant that I wouldn't be talking about the fight while it was going on during stream is because it's just...
They'd been waiting for this moment for months, and what did they get? A poorly executed, possibly staged mess that had viewers throwing their popcorn at the screen. So now, with Netflix trying to dodge responsibility and point fingers at Tyson and Paul, fans aren't buying it. Cue the lawsuit, Netflix, because the live event turned into a corporate disaster.
I do believe it was scripted. What? And I believe that Tyson was certainly held back. What? Look, I'm a fighter and I can see it.
And trust me, the popcorn isn't the only thing getting thrown around now. If the script didn't play out like that, maybe the whole thing was a setup. Who would have guessed, right? So Netflix went ahead and sued Mike Tyson and Jake Paul for the scripted fight, and honestly, it's well-deserved. Mike Tyson, the guy who once had the world trembling with fear at the thought of his punches, now gets dragged into this mess with a YouTuber who thinks boxing means throwing a few slow punches for cash.
I'm glad to see that, because if I hadn't saw that, I would be worried that this fight may not even be for real.
Tyson, my dude, you were a legend. A legend. And what did you do? You tossed that legendary history aside like an old ratty sweater you couldn't be bothered to donate? And then there's Jake Paul, a guy who's convinced the world that getting punched for a living is a career path. If there was any justice in the world, you should have both been sued for ruining the boxing.
Catches him flush on the chin. Tyson's leg buckle and he drops to the canvas. Then he's out for the count, but Tyson, despite his warrior heart, cannot beat the 10 count. Winner Jake Paul by KO. What?
Well, the real reason why Mike Tyson and Jake Paul turned a fight into Showtime circus was money. Tyson, a man who once made millions by terrifying opponents, suddenly found himself in a ring. And why? Because Netflix came along with a fat paycheck.
I believe that he was making the money he says he's making. Showtime Boxing wouldn't have gone out of business, and Showtime would have made sure they...
Jake Paul, the guy who somehow managed to make a career out of being a YouTube villain and punching people in the face for a living? I mean, come on. Jake, what are you even doing? You're out here making millions by pretending to be a boxer and getting paid for the kind of nonsense.
Somewhat rigged. Now, there's varying degrees of arguments. The first is that Tyson was required to complete 8 rounds for money. Some say that's how it was rigged. He's not going to go all out to shut down Jake Paul because he wants $20 million.
But here's the problem. In their quest for a quick payday, they both made a mockery of real sports. This wasn't just about putting on a show. It was about doing the absolute bare minimum and getting away with it. Sure, Netflix probably told them, just pretend it's a fight, nobody will care. But here's the thing, we care. We watch Tyson, whose biggest skill is making viral videos. And Jake? He's the dude who needs the script to beat up an old man. That is a low point.
Mike Tyson fight.
Interesting.
Script. How so? What do you mean by
It's just
script?
weird. It just...
Like scripted in what way?
No, I don't know.
And now look at the fallout. The script leaks, the conspiracy theories explode, and suddenly everyone's questioning everything. Was this fight even real? Is Netflix just in the business of faking everything now?
Well, X has spoken. The fight was scripted. Everyone is talking about this on X, and the script was actually leaked on X a few days.
Well, Tyson and Paul certainly helped open that can of worms. All for a quick payday. Bravo, guys. You both turned boxing into a joke and got paid for it. And now you're being slapped with a $50 million lawsuit for your trouble. Guess what? You totally earned it. Well done. Not only the fight was a big, but Netflix failed miserably. And now they're facing a lawsuit that's got everyone watching. The lesson here? Don't promise us a fight and deliver a nightmare. Because when people are paying it for an event, they kind of expect to see it, you know?
Friend Mike Tyson tweeted that he almost died over the summer. He said, he had a bunch of blood transfusions, just had to fight to get healthy. And then his performance yesterday against Jake Paul, just your thoughts on what we saw.
Mike Tyson was right, and I was wrong.
The public reaction? It was ugly. If Netflix thought they could slide by unnoticed, they were in for a rude awakening. Fans didn't just tweet their anger. They were ready to burn down the internet. The fight was a disaster. The glitches were a joke. And honestly, it was hard to tell if we were watching a boxing match or a poorly scripted Netflix original. People were asking, is this real or did Netflix just decide to make another disaster movie? Spoiler alert, it wasn't even good enough to beat that. And then came the social media storm. Fans went wild faster than Netflix's buffering icon, calling the whole thing everything from a joke to the worst event ever. Was the fight even real? Or were we all just pawns in some weird Netflix reality show?
People keep emailing me and asking me, what did I think about the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight? The reason I didn't want to talk about the fight and the reason I was so adamant that I wouldn't be talking about the fight while it was going on during stream is because it's just...
Influencers were already planning how to monetize the disaster. Because hey, at least as someone who was cashing in on this mess. If this is the future of boxing, where every fight's a scripted spectacle, fans might just start punching their own TVs in frustration.
This is currently being sued over their Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. And it's not because people think the fight was rigged, though I have questions, and that's what we'll get into. It's because it didn't work. And a lot of people were buffering.
This lawsuit, it could be a game changer for Netflix and every other streaming platform out there. If this thing sticks, it could open the floodgates for more lawsuits every time Netflix messes up a live event. Imagine millions of fans with their popcorn ready to watch the next big thing, only to have their stream freeze mid-punch. Do you think people will just shrug it off? Yeah, right, Netflix could be facing a lot more legal headaches in the future. And let's not even get started on the implications for boxing itself. Will the audience even care about the difference anymore, or will they just tune in for the next train wreck?
Everything, but my kids, to my children, I'm nobody. But that night they're gonna find out their father's very special.
His balance seemed off, and he struggled to...
About the future of celebrity boxing and pay-per-view events? Yeah, buckle up, because if this is the new trend, we're about to witness an entire generation of athletes who are more famous for being famous than actually knowing how to throw a punch. Expect more big-name celebs cashing in on these glorified slap fights, where the real competition takes a back seat to who's got the best script, the juiciest drama, and the flashiest pay-per-view numbers. Real athletes, they're going to be shoved aside, replaced by YouTube stars who can barely remember their own punchlines. But when do audiences finally wake up and realize they're just watching actors in gloves? When the real talent gets drowned out by all the staged nonsense, will anyone even care about the authenticity of sports anymore? Are we about to live in a world where we have to Google is this fight real before every match? If Netflix doesn't clean up its act fast, this could be just the beginning of a much larger mess. And as for boxing, well, who knows? The next real fight might be about as scripted as this one. We could be headed for a future where the only thing genuine in the ring is the sweat on the fighter's brows. And even that might be CGI.